All right. Well, welcome. This is Winnie Anderson, host of Let's Talk Tech, and this is the after show. The after show is where we take a conversation that was started between my guest and we take it a little deeper. We go over some things that we covered in the episode, but we also take some topics that we wanted to go a little deeper in and just didn't get the opportunity, or we didn't have the time to cover, or sometimes questions come in after an episode airs and we address those too. So Let's Talk Tech is the show for entrepreneurs who are confused, frustrated, and overwhelmed by the software systems, services, and apps it takes to run and grow a profitable business. And it's for people who are determined not to let the tech get in their way. So if that's you, welcome. So this session is with my friend Mike Wood, who is a professional Wikipedia editor, and he's going to tell us what that is. And we were discussing in the original episode of Let's Talk Tech, we were talking about how somebody gets a Wikipedia page or Wikipedia article for themselves or their business. So we're going to chat about that, and then we're going to go into a little bit of some of the concepts that Mike talked about. I just didn't have time to go into it in the interview. So welcome, Mike. Are you ready to talk tech?
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on again. First time Blab, but I enjoyed the podcast and ready to go.
Thank you. So, and we've got more great conversations going this, naturally. So be sure to check out Let's Talk Tech at techshowpodcast.com or the Let's Talk Tech Show.com. So, Mike, tell us just what you do as a professional Wikipedia page writer and editor.
Yeah, well, I do all digital marketing, but I would say Wikipedia is probably about 90% of what I do. And, as a professional Wikipedia editor, writer, consultant, what I do is help people, companies, either get or expand their presence on Wikipedia. Now, just to be clear up front, Wikipedia is free. It's open source. Anyone can create an account and go in, edit, create pages. You don't even need to create an account. You can do it from your own IP address. You just go to the site and click the edit button and start editing. One of the issues, though, is probably I would say about 7-8 years ago, maybe even more, 9 years ago, shortly after Wikipedia started, marketers, such as myself, but I wasn't part of the group back then, saw how powerful Wikipedia was, not only to have a page hit high in Google, but the backlinks. And whenever marketers find a new tactic, what do? We jump on the trend and we hammer it. So that's what happened. Years ago, people jumped on Wikipedia. They started spamming it with content and links, and the pendulum kind of swung. So back, 10 years ago when it was open source, anyone could edit. It was friendly. You come on, you can create articles. As soon as the spam started coming, so did the rules, the guidelines. And again, the pendulum swung to the other side. Pretty much anything editors could keep out of Wikipedia, they will keep out. And the pendulum's never kind of found a happy medium. It goes back and forth constantly. So what I do as a professional Wikipedia writer is I help people so that they don't have to take months or years learning all the rules and the guidelines that it takes to create a Wikipedia page. I can review articles that they've written if they want to post their own content. I can consult them on that. I monitor pages for people who simply don't want to take the time to do it. And I also create pages for people that don't want to take the time to do it, or they've tried and failed because of any guideline, maybe referencing, formatting. And again, we're going to talk a little bit about what it takes to be on Wikipedia.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about that a little bit. What can you explain this concept of notability? Because this really is, I think, a big issue, right, for getting a page that gets up on Wikipedia and stays up, right?
Correct, absolutely. And notability, in the sense of what I'm going to talk about, is Wikipedia's definition of notability. I want people to understand, just because you hear that you're not notable for Wikipedia doesn't necessarily mean you're not notable in the real world. There's specific guidelines that that you need to meet in order to meet this notability criteria. So notability for Wikipedia basically means that you're worthy of notice. People notice of you, and you're, I don't want to say popular enough, but notable enough in the Wikipedia's community that you would warrant a Wikipedia article. Now think of Wikipedia as an encyclopedia. That's exactly what it is. It's just online. If you own a local 7-Eleven, Encyclopedia Britannica isn't about, which is now defunct, it is not about to create an entry for you and deliver it door to door. You've got to think of that sustainability. Maybe 7-Eleven as a whole would, but a local 7-Eleven wouldn't. Some small businesses qualify, some don't. So the basic definition for Wikipedia is it's three-pronged. You need to have significant coverage in reliable sources that are independent of the topic. So it all comes down to news coverage. What does the media say about you? What do others say about you? And Wikipedia feels that, if these people are talking about you, if reliable sources are talking about you enough in depth, then you're notable enough to be in the encyclopedia.
So would you say then that reliable sources, would these be traditional media, or can they be digital media as well?
They can be digital media, and when you're dealing with Wikipedia, references are going to vary depending on the topic. For instance, if you're doing something on a medical device, you can't just quote, the Wall Street Journal. Maybe the Wall Street Journal could be used as an opinion. If somebody's a medical expert and they wrote an ed piece, maybe that opinion could go within the article. But you're going to need sources such as peer-reviewed journals that have showed testing of a specific device. If you're talking about a company, you're going to need sources from things such as the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. Putting it in the here in Orange County, California, you can't just put it in the OC Register. If you have an article in the OC Register, that doesn't necessarily qualify you for a Wikipedia page. So there's a steep guideline that a big threshold that you really need to meet for Wikipedia. And it's confusing to a lot of people. It's still confusing to me at times because, it changes, not just what Wikipedia says is notable, but the individual within consensus actually get to determine what that means. For instance, there's a notice board for references. So, I bring up the Orange County Register. It may be used as a reliable source for some things, maybe not others. Maybe it can be used for notability, maybe it can't. So you can actually go to that board and people can debate on whether or not that is true. But traditionally, you want traditional media. Online is great because it's verifiable, and Wikipedia is about verifiability. But, print, books can be used. And you got to think about it. Some topics are so old, there wasn't media back then. They're only covered in books, which may not be online. So, while digital media is great, it can't be used 100% of the time.
Okay, and I'm going to just copy and paste, and hopefully this will work.
Okay.
I'm just going to paste this into the messages here. So this, I think, is Wikipedia citing sources. So hopefully that is what you're talking about in terms of references. So I guess, this to a degree, it's almost like, the old adage, pornography, I know it when I see it, right? So a reference,
correct.
References may or may not be powerful for you, depending on, I guess, the topic, their own status in commenting or being the publication of record maybe for that sort of thing. So if you're a consultant, let's say a management consultant, and you have either an article in Harvard Business Review or you were mentioned in Harvard Business Review, like maybe you're an expert or something you did was mentioned in an article, do you think that could be a potential, they're a pretty big publication?
Yeah, it could be possible, and I'm glad you mentioned the word mention, because it's very, it gets kind of confusing when you're talking about references for Wikipedia. People need to understand there's two main types of references that you want to look at. One is a reference that goes towards notability, and the other is one that can support content within an article.
Okay.
And so, for instance, you talk about someone being mentioned in Harvard Business Review. That mention is not going to qualify him for notability. because it doesn't talk about them in depth. It just mentions them. Maybe it mentions something they do. Maybe it mentions their profession, verifies where they went to school or something like that. Now, that link is perfect to use within the body of the article. Let's say someone went to Yale, and in the Harvard Business Review, it says, Winnie Anderson, graduate of Yale in 1985, whatever. It's like, okay, great. We can put that in the article and use that as a source, but that doesn't mean they would qualify for a Wikipedia page. To qualify, you need something in-depth, significant coverage, something that talks about you. For instance, a profile piece that talks about you and your career and what you do. And not just one, it needs to be multiple.
Okay. So I'm thinking about when I was a freelance copywriter, I did some work for an agency in California, and I was the account manager for an author. Okay, his name is Mark Murphy. He's fantastic. Get all of his books. He's great. So Mark had and he was really finally like getting serious about managing his online and offline reputation and getting his message out in a bigger way. So he's probably a good example, I think. At that point, he had one traditionally published book. He had a YouTube channel. He had articles that he had written, and he was quoted in some articles. So what in there would be useful for his page? What would be for notability, and what would be like a citation, a reference?
Great question. And you bring up a couple points there. It's all going to depend on what he is best known for. You say, he is an author. Okay, there's general notability guidelines, what we just talked about, the significant coverage, but there's also a subset of guidelines for each profession. For instance, authors have, a specific type of criteria that can be met. Musicians can have a different criteria that must be met. And it kind of helps tailor you so you know exactly what sources to look for. For instance, if you're a writer, a published author, you may have written 20 books. And nothing's been said about you, but everything's been said about the books and their best-selling books. Well, there is a way to craft a page for that to include the books. So, if we're looking at an author, one thing that is great is you're going to find things such as New York Times, especially if they're on the bestsellers list. There'll usually be something about that person's life or how they started. For instance, there's never shortage of articles on Stephen King, not just his works, but him and his life. And that's a perfect example. I just published a book too. That doesn't qualify me for a Wikipedia page. Not enough people are talking about my book. I'm not on the New York Times bestseller list, nor do I believe it will be. But there are people who have, and those are the ones that, qualify for the notability. So it's almost one of those, like you said, you'll know it when you see it. Okay. But for an author, I like book reviews. I love book reviews. Book reviews can be used, knowing them on the bestseller list, not just listing them on the bestseller list, but talking about them being a best-selling author. Things like those can all be brought in.
Okay, great. So what I'm hearing, and the conclusion that I came to by the end of our interview together, is that the average business owner is unlikely to qualify for having their own Wikipedia page. So Absolutely. Let's talk about this concept of notability in a slightly different way, and in terms of building an overall reputation, because I think if you're working, if you have this end game of what if I qualified one day for a Wikipedia page, if that is an intention for you, you're going to be doing a whole host of activities that are going to then support the growth of your your reputation in general. So can you talk a little bit about, and I'm going to just quickly reach over while you start and talk, because I want to make sure I've got all my dingers turned off. Can you talk a little bit about this idea of creating this reputation, this presence? What should we be thinking about?
Yeah, great question. It's very, very in-depth question. So hopefully I don't talk too long here. Cut me off whenever you start to get bored. But you talk about creating, and there's a fine line that you're crossing when you're talking about media associated with Wikipedia. There are a lot of people out there, and years ago I thought this was the way to do it, is to go and create media or have media created for the purpose of creating a Wikipedia page. I want to be perfectly clear. If you are going to do media outreach, which you should, I recommend media outreach over Wikipedia any day. But, because it's not going to be changed as often as Wikipedia, and some is just as powerful. You got to make sure that the purpose for the media outreach isn't to create a Wikipedia page, because in my mind, you're kind of manipulating the system. Yeah. I want a Wikipedia page, so I'm going to go out and get New York Times, I'm going to get Wall Street Journal, and I'm going to either pay or beg or knock on people's doors in order to get that media for purpose of Wikipedia. Now, I offer both services. I offer media outreach and I offer the Wikipedia consulting. Okay. But I tell people this: if I do media outreach for you, you are no longer a Wikipedia client for me, because I don't want to ever be accused of crossing that line for people. Now, back to your question about, people don't qualify. There's a ton of people that don't qualify. Think about podcasting for a minute. You run a great podcast, but how many podcasts are actually notable enough for Wikipedia compared to the tens of thousands that are out there? So, very few people qualify. And don't think because you're a small business, you don't qualify. You can always reach out. I'll tell you for free. I'll take a look at your company, your site, your book, whatever, and let you know right away whether or not I feel it is. But, don't just think you don't qualify. Now, for those that don't, I absolutely do recommend media outreach. Reach out to publications, use things such as HARO, which is Help a Reporter Out, get quoted. People will start picking up featured stories on you. And next thing you know, you may have enough media to qualify for a Wikipedia page because you have those sources. Okay. But again, I caution, don't chase the media simply for the Wikipedia page, because that's going back to the old school marketer of spamming Wikipedia in an attempt to gain the system.
Yeah. I think what I really learned from our conversation is that this is kind of like the cherry on the sundae, the whipped cream on the sundae, and that if you really are going to set the intention that you want to become a recognized expert in your field, there are specific things that you want to do, and the outcome then may be that you qualify for a Wikipedia page, but the outcome is still going to be that you're going to become a recognized expert in your field. And if that, and that's probably what your goal should be, not that you get this, hey, I grabbed the brass ring, I checked the box, I won a Wikipedia page, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this idea of building your media outreach plan. And, can you just start with press releases to your local paper, or should you have, should you go right to the big regional paper or city paper in your area? What do you think?
You go where the press is.
Okay.
There's always no such thing as bad press. If you're in a specific industry, reach out to trade industry publications. Okay. Kind of going back to notability, I had a client that wanted a Wikipedia page, and they built a specific gadget for airplanes. And I'm not going to mention the name because I don't disclose clients, but I'll tell you this: if you go to anyone in the airline industry and mention this company's name, they're like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%, we know them." They don't qualify for a Wikipedia page because no one is going to pick up an article and talk about widgets that are used in a specific component of an airplane. Maybe if it caused a crash or something like that, maybe it may make news, but the company's still not going to make news. Okay. So, going back to that, you look for publications that may be interested in your story. Don't necessarily reach out to the New York Times or Wall Street Journal. Reach out to some local people. And there's a number of ways you can do that. Press releases are great, but press releases aren't as effective as they used to be. So you kind of have to have a media outreach strategy that incorporates everything. One suggestion that I give everybody that they can take away here that doesn't cost you a dime and will help get your feet wet for media outreach, you can do yourself. You don't have to hire a PR firm or everything. Go to the website Help a Reporter Out, HARO. This website is both for journalists and for experts, or not even experts, just people in a specific field who may have information to help journalists. Here's an example. I'm in there right now because I have an article that I'm writing for the Huffington Post, and there's specific expertise that I needed for that article, which is outside my realm. And I'm not even going to pretend to claim to be an expert in the field that I'm writing about. It's actually on psychology, which is, again, past my forte here. So I want experts. So I posted it on Help a Reporter Out. And now I have people in the field of psychology, doctors, counselors, people who own different treatment centers that are reaching out and saying, hey, I'd love to help you. Ask me any questions you want, or here's a summary of what I think could go in the article. Now, I have plenty of information to quote in an article, and I'm going to mention their name. According to Winnie Anderson from Let's Talk Tech, using Blab is the next best thing. You know what I mean? So now you're getting those mentions in the media. Next thing you know, it will start to pick up. Maybe you are an expert in a field. Maybe someone says, you know what? Winnie's got a great show. I think I'm going to write an article about her show and the overall. So next thing you know, you've got something in OC Register. Then the New York Times decides they're going to do a piece on, the 10 best podcasts of all time. They come across the OC Register article. They listen to your show, and they're like, you know what, we're going to include her. Next thing you know, you're in there. So it's kind of like a step-by-step process. Yes, and unless you're like Uber, you're not going to hit, New York Times overnight. And I'm not saying don't reach out. Reach out to them. You may get somebody. I got a Business Insider article years ago. I had absolutely no press. I just sent them a cold email, and it took. They were like, great, yeah, let's do something. So, sometimes that can help, but I would focus on something more localized to your profession at first.
Okay, yeah, I used to live in South Jersey, and I started to build a relationship with the editor of the business section of the local daily paper, and we connected. I would send him nothing about me. I would send him information about people that I thought were experts in the area, and hey, it's this time, like there was a professional organizer that I knew, and I sent him her information and said, hey, I know that, end of the year's coming up, beginning of the year's coming up. A lot of times there are articles about organization. If you're planning on one, hey, here's a person. So I wanted him to see me as a resource in general. Then when I wanted to publicize an event I was doing, which was free, I got it right in front page of the business section with a picture and a headline, and he then interviewed me for, to beef out that article. So my recommendation to people is to don't think about yourself first. Think about that person who you're serving, the actual writer. So we've got Dr. Corey here. So Dr. Corey, do you have some questions for us?
Yeah, I was wondering, you put up, the Wikipedia. Is there any chance that anyone can get on Wikipedia to put up some information?
Yeah, if you're looking to post something, absolutely. As long as you qualify, you can absolutely write an article and post it on there. If there's information that you want to add or change in a current article, you absolutely can. It's open source. Anyone can get in and edit. The only thing that we need to make sure of is that whatever information we add, remove, or any page that we create meets one of the many, many guidelines that they have as far as notability, which is the biggest one, and also formatting, referencing, neutral tone. For instance, you don't want to write a puff piece or a press release type statement. On the reverse hand of that, there's some people that create hit pieces. They create Wikipedia pages just with negative information against people.
Can it be entertainment?
Yeah, well, it depends on what you mean by the question. It can be on someone in the entertainment industry or, a specific movie or something like that. Absolutely.
Like I have created a method in my website that I've posted is Dreams Come True University hashtag is a hashtag, and it's about, how to raise one's consciousness, being aware of, frequency, energy, positive vibes, motivation, things as such.
So you're looking to use that as a reference within Wikipedia. Is that correct? Like use it as a link?
As some sort of putting up some information that people would engage in such a conversation.
Yeah. Now, for that, what you're going to need is your website would be seen as the actual source. So for Wikipedia has strict standards for what a reliable source is and what isn't a reliable source. Most websites and blogs are not going to qualify as a reliable source. Doesn't mean that they don't have reliable information. For instance, WebMD. Let's look at WebMD for a minute. It's used by millions of people. It may not be considered reliable, but everybody uses it. It's one of the first places they go, just like Wikipedia. So it's not necessarily a reliable source in Wikipedia for certain articles.
Yes.
For instance, you're not going to want to quote it for a disease. You're going to want to quote again a peer-reviewed journal or a study that talks about that specific disease.
So conventional. You mean conventional?
Yes.
So it's not something that, for example, frequency that I'm mentioning is something that it's some sort of a subjective subject that people get into it to entertain it. So it's not a reliable source of conventional thing, because I'm an entertainer, but my background is in research. But I created a method for people to be entertained into this idea that how they can basically improve their lives, improve their health and mentality.
That to me sounds like something that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but that to me sounds like something that Dr. Corey would want to go to, like maybe a trade publication first, or some other type of press building, attention building kind of activity, and then go for the Wikipedia page. Do you think that would be a good plan?
Yes and no. I mean, if it's talked about enough, then absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, if enough people talk about it.
Right.
For Dr. Corey, what I would say is, what research papers have you written? Have you written some research papers with the information in there? And if you had, those research papers could technically, again, we're going to have to evaluate the specific content versus the specific source, but it could technically be used as a reference. Doesn't mean it can be. Again, each situation needs to be evaluated independently. But, if you're cited as a doctor in different research papers, that goes towards your notability purposely. Index scores for researchers and doctors are weighed heavily towards that person's notability.
Exactly. And that's why
on Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's why I created a hashtag that anyone can take my hashtag and lie about me if they want to.
Wait, who would want to lie about you, doctor?
The people that makes fun of celebrities, including our president, Barack Obama.
Okay. All right.
Conspiracies, baloney, bullshit, all kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, anyone can do it, but if it's not from a reliable source, it's not going to last on Wikipedia.
It's entertainment. So many people fun of entertainers.
Yeah, and that's probably, we never talked about that, Mike, but that's probably one of the downsides of having a Wikipedia page is that, you sort of become a target, or you're open to people who want to hurt, tear down your page, or, we talked about Stephen Colbert and that campaign that he ran on his crazy show about, let's go in and make all these crazy edits on Wikipedia pages. So would you say that's one of the downsides, is that now you need to be concerned about somebody doing that to you? Do you think it's I guess for celebrities, it's a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. With the age of the internet, trolls are aplenty. I'm sorry. Internet trolls are everywhere. What people could not normally do to someone's face, they now have the capability to do behind the screen.
I have a lot of trolls who are my fans.
Okay, that's good. Why wouldn't you want that then?
because they
They're helping
exist.
you out, right? They're spreading
Exactly. I have whole
yeah,
people
exactly.
come to watch my shows, and I
So
lock
so
the
let's
seat. I
assume
lock it. Nobody can get on the seat even.
okay, so let's
Okay.
assume these trolls want to say something bad about you on Wikipedia. So
Welcome.
let's say you have your own Wikipedia article, and now a troll comes up and says, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and say something negative about Dr. Corey. Unless they have a reliable source to support it, they're not going to be able to add it. They're going to be able to add it, but people from other volunteer editors, paid editors, whoever you want to get, even you yourself can go and remove that information if it's not cited from a reliable source. And I'll give you an example. You talk about Barack Obama. Okay, let's go to Barack Obama's page today, and I bet you people are attempting to add information that's not from a reliable source. Think of the birth certificate issue from 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the most edited topics ever, just back and forth from everybody. But it comes down to what's in a reliable source. Everyone wants to interject their opinion, but unless it's in a reliable source, it's going to be removed. So
I have even seen some anti-Semitic things that was made for Barack Obama. So, you know, anybody can make anything virtually on cyberspace. So I made a hashtag university for people to come and make a fool out of themselves.
Now you just hit the nail on the head with that. You said anybody can create anything online, which is true. I can put up a website today. I can create anything I want, but that's why Wikipedia's strict guidelines call for reliable sources. I can't just put up MikeWood.com and talk about how Winnie is the new president and I'm the new vice president, and then go tomorrow to Wikipedia and create pages for us saying who we are. It doesn't happen that way. Wikipedia has such a strict guideline on sources and what can be added that people are going to call our bluffs. They're going to say, no, that's not who they are.
So you want some
absolutely must be a reliable source.
You want some accurate or valuable or valued track record.
Correct. That's why sources such as the New York Times, Wall Street Journal,
what
we're talking about medical, we're talking about peer-reviewed journals. We're not going to quote, we're not going to record or quote Michigan Live, MLive for, for some medical type article. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
You're going to need studies, the peer-reviewed studies.
I'll give you an example. If Miss Winnie got on Wikipedia, everybody would admit that she's beautiful, and there is no doubt about it. No introduction, no proof.
I don't know about that. I don't have enough money to pay people to think that, and I don't know that that's really a relevant issue in Wikipedia. But we've got a great question here that Fraser Hay has asked Dr. Corey, so I'm going to drop you off. And I am going to thanks so much for participating, though. So Fraser has a great question, and he asked, where is it? He wants to know the top 5 tips, Mike, that you have for creating a Wikipedia page. So Mike gave some great tips for doing a free page on the original episode that we did together of Let's Talk Tech. So Mike, do you have 5 tips for us for creating a page?
I have hundreds, but I could kind of go down my list. Number one is you really need to establish your notability. If you are not notable, if you cannot establish it, if you don't think that you can establish it, don't even go to a second step, because everything else you do from there is going to be futile. So many people contact me and say, I've submitted my page 3 times. It's been deleted every time. And I look at the content and I say, why are you submitting it? All you're doing is backing yourself in a hole. You don't have the media. You need a media outreach strategy. You need to pull some of these sources together. So number one is, you need to establish your notability. If you're not notable, one day you will be. That's just the way it is. One day you will be, maybe not. But in the meantime, let's say you can establish notability and you have that done. Next thing you know is make sure that you understand tone with Wikipedia. Everything written in Wikipedia needs to be from a neutral point of view, and it needs to be I don't want to say, it needs to be neutral with how you're writing it. It can't be written from a promotional point of view, kind of like what we talked on the podcast. So many people want to list their awards and lengthy history of their products and services on Wikipedia. People don't care about that on Wikipedia. They come to Wikipedia, they want to know who you are, what you do. They don't want to know all the technical details. If you've won some awards, put that you've won some awards, but you don't have to put a bullet point list of 20 things. So you need to make sure that you write it in a tone that's not promotional.
And it has to be relevant, right? I mean, I don't want to know that you won the safety patrol, right?
Yes.
I want to know what
you have a website.
Relevant. Yeah.
Exactly. You have a website. There's a link in your Wikipedia page for your website. Put anything that you want on your website. It's your website. You create it. Just like, Dr. Corey says, anyone can create anything. Yeah, create your website, put all the promotional content on it that you want. But when you go to Wikipedia, the second thing you need to make sure once you establish notability is that you write everything from a neutral point of view. The third thing is I want to make sure that the formatting is correct. For instance, if you're creating a page about a person, you need to make sure that you follow a steady format. You need to go with, someone's, you don't want to put their personal life up at the top. You want to put their early life and education, then you want to go in and talk about their career. If they're an author, you can list their books in a bibliography section. You don't want to start off with a bibliography section and then go into where they attended school. It just doesn't flow in that type of art and that type of order. Now, there's specific pages that talk about guidelines and formatting, but I tell people follow the general format of many, many, many other similar articles. Don't just find one and say, I'm molding it after this, because that may be a bad article, but kind of find the general format of all the other ones and stick with that. And the final thing, I guess this would only be 4, is make sure you include the appropriate references. Don't put anything in the page that can't be sourced, and make sure you put the appropriate references after each thing that you identify within the article. If you can do those things, you're going to have a leg up on most people creating Wikipedia pages.
Mike, let's talk a little bit more about this language. This is something that it's a personal pet peeve of mine, and I know it is of yours too. Often in writing, we will see words that are, I'm going to put them judgments. And by judgment would be, if I said let's say I wrote an article about a fight that happened. If I said that Gail cold-cocked Mike, or that Gail slapped him hard is a judgment that I'm applying. But if I just say that Gail struck Mike across the face with her open palm, okay, that's a slap, right? That is more of a neutral kind of statement. Would you say that that's true there?
Yeah, and it kind of brings up about the writing style and for being neutral. We talked a little bit on the podcast about weasel words.
Right.
People love to use weasel words in their content. Weasel words don't belong in Wikipedia, period.
Right. Give us some examples of weasel words. And I love the whole phrase.
Hostess with the mostest. No. You don't have to use terms like best of all time or greatest or most prolific. She's the most prolific writer of all times.
Gag. I know. It's like, how can you even prove that? Come on.
You may be able to put somewhere in the article that, maybe in a review, a book review, the New York Times called her the most prolific author of all times, and then cite that New York Times article. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're the most prolific author of all times. It just means someone from the New York Times who wrote a piece about you said that. So, a lot of people like to use those, most
unless
prolific.
You're in the Guinness book, right? If you're in the Guinness book and you're actually receive that as an award or something.
Yes, and companies like, what do you want to say? They like to use technical details. Well, people from the industry aren't going to look on Wikipedia specifically for a company. Because if they are, they're going to be looking at their competitor, and it doesn't really matter what you say on your page. So don't use the technical jargon. I get some people that do like the cloud space or, digital security, and they get into some of these terms that I don't even understand. And I'm a marketer, and I read this stuff all day long.
Right.
So, you really need to keep it encyclopedic. Keep in mind who your audience is going to be.
Yeah, they tend to be people, we know when we go to Wikipedia, we want the facts, right? And we do want something that is verifiable. We want to know this is credible information, that this is useful enough for us to cite in whatever it is that we're creating and that we're working on. So I think this issue of weasel words is an important one, and it even relates to your general marketing writing, because when you use these weaselly kind of phrases that we're the best ever, or we are high quality, what the heck does that mean? Say something that is more concrete, that is truly going to resonate.
Very subjective. It's very subjective.
There you go. It is. It's just that really makes me crazy. So let's talk a little bit more about the overall media strategy, because I think this really has, this whole conversation and your episode on Let's Talk Tech really illustrated that you need an actual strategy and a focus of what it is that you're trying to achieve. So can you give us maybe a few tips on where to even get started with putting together a media strategy?
Yes, give me 1 second. I'm
sorry.
Yes,
that's quite all right. And I will tap dance while Mike is away. So you want to check out his actual episode, you can go to techshowpodcast.com, which is the show on iTunes, and it will be the most recent show that is listed, or you can go to theletstalktechshow.com, which is the show's site, and you can find all of our shows in order with the latest show on top, and that is where Mike is right now. So, back to you, Mike.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Kids just came back in from the playground.
So great.
Summertime here, everybody's out of school, so I kind of have a zoo going on here.
That's the joy of working from home.
Exactly. A media outreach strategy needs to be tailored towards your specific industry and what you're looking to accomplish. And again, we talked about, don't put Wikipedia as your overall method for accomplishing it. If it happens while you're building press, then that's great. Okay, but don't put that as your ultimate goal for media outreach and media strategy. Everybody needs a media strategy. If people aren't talking about you, people aren't going to know who you are. I've got press. I've got good press. A lot of Wikipedia editors hate that I do this for a living, when they volunteer, but the press is good. And overall, I want people to know what I do and how I can help them. And whether that comes out in a piece in Time Magazine, whether it's on a Blab with Winnie Anderson here, it's getting the message out. So you really need to tailor something specific to not only your industry, but specifically to you. If you're a writer, you don't just want to contact everybody that does books. My book is specific to marketing. So I'm hitting websites that do marketing, not necessarily book reviews, because most people who are reading book reviews aren't looking for the next best book on Wikipedia marketing. They're looking for, fiction or nonfiction that's going to entertain them. My book's not entertaining. It's technical. It's a marketing book. So I'm hitting marketing sites for those type of things. And each media strategy is going to be different. You can't just template it for one business or another. And don't be scared to pay somebody to do it at all. You talked earlier about your contact in New Jersey, for media outreach. Talk to people that you know and see if they have any of these contacts. Hiring a PR firm is not necessarily bad. I know, spin sucks. People hate PR firms. We get it. But they can do work for you. Why? Because they already have the contacts. Right. They have people with the New York Times that they can call today and say, hey, I got a great story about the top 5 podcasts of all times. It was top 10, but I'm moving you up there, Winnie. Top 5 podcasts of all times.
Yay.
And do you want to do a story? I got Winnie Anderson. I want to offer you up. And they can immediately say yes or no. And that's better than doing, cold calls or emails, stuff like that. So sometimes paying a PR firm or paying somebody who does media outreach to do that, it can help. It really can help, and it can get you a leg up, especially get you jump started as you're going.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that we plug Mike's book. If you go to Mike's website, you will be able to opt in to get his great information, and you can get a copy of his book. So we had somebody here and then they bounced out, and we are really wrapping up anyway. So let me just recap a couple of things for you, and then Mike will let you say any last, big thoughts you have to share. So Mike is a professional Wikipedia writer. He also does digital marketing and media outreach, and you can find him at that site, legalmorning.com. He has a new book, Wikipedia as a marketing tool, so you can grab a free copy of that if you go and opt in on his site. The episode that he is on is the latest episode on the Let's Talk Tech Show, and it is at theletstalktechshow.com/Wikipedia pages, so you can go right to that episode if you would like. You can also check out the show at techshowpodcast.com. We do blabs on a regular basis as the after show, where we go into the topics a little bit deeper, or go into a segment of a topic a little bit deeper. And we've been talking about this whole idea of having a Wikipedia page for your business, because, hey, what's bigger than Wikipedia in the search engine rankings, right? But it might not be, it probably isn't the tool that you want to go after first. So Mike gave some great tips for getting a Wikipedia page up. He also shared some great ideas for media outreach and media strategy, and that being a great place to start. So, Mike, do you think that the overall consensus here of pursuing a media outreach program, would you say that it's primarily for brand building and awareness building? Is that really what people should go after?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, 90% of my business is derived from Wikipedia editing.
Okay.
But I tell people, if you can develop a media strategy and leave Wikipedia alone, do that. I would rather turn business away and have you go and develop a great media strategy, because in the long run, it's going to help your company. And it absolutely is about branding. You want to let people know who you are and what you're about before, again, a troll comes up and tries to let people know who you are, or, before one bad thing happens to where everybody thinks you're, the devil or something. A perfect example is Chipotle. Chipotle had their run over the last year of health issues.
Right.
When that first came out in the media, I don't think anyone believed it. People read it and were like, what?
Right.
No, Chipotle's the healthiest, because they had their story out there already. They were branded. They were doing reputation control, but they didn't have to do complete damage control building from the bottom. They were able to weather that storm as they're gone. And no one's going to remember about that other than maybe, on its Wikipedia page. So, developing a media strategy, I think, trumps Wikipedia all the time. One thing I want to add is people think Wikipedia is the Holy Grail. They chase Wikipedia like the Holy Grail.
Right.
It's great. It is a great marketing tool, but keep in mind that there are some better things out there. If you don't qualify for Wikipedia, don't do it. Don't try to spam something on Wikipedia or, shove it down editors' throats or the public's throats. If you don't qualify for Wikipedia, that's fine. Do the media outreach strategy. If you do qualify for Wikipedia, it's a great source. It's a great source. I'd love to help you. You can do it on your own. You can get up on Wikipedia. It's great, but make sure that, you qualify and that you do it the right way. Otherwise, you're going to do yourself harm.
That alone right there is a really great tip. And I think that, again, the big focus is create a strategy because you want to be positioned as an authority in your field. And if you're saying to yourself, oh, I'm not an authority, oh, I'm not an expert, you have issues. Okay, I'm just going to tell you right out there, you have issues, and you need to address those issues within yourself, because you want to be known as an authority. Otherwise, how are you going to attract clients? So that kind of authority building is what's going to truly enable you to become magnetic and start attracting people rather than have you chase them. So I'll get off my soapbox about that, but I think it's obviously a sore point. I really do think that I concur with Mike's opinion. The media strategy is really a much more solid plan and is going to end up getting you what you want in the long term rather than chasing some crazy brass ring. So, yeah, if you can get it, great, and go to Mike because he is the go-to person. If not, go to Mike anyway because he is a great media strategist as well. So, and he can help you with putting together that outreach plan. So, It's been great chatting. Anything else you want to share, Mike?
No, real fast. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
You know, I let people know I don't charge them to evaluate a topic. If they're not sure if they're notable for Wikipedia, I would rather have them come to me and I can tell them yes or no based on my opinion and experience as an expert doing it. Let them know whether or not I think they would qualify or not. I'd rather them come to me and get that free initial advice than going and trying to put something up on Wikipedia that's going to be deleted. Because if you delete it, it's going to be harder getting it up the second time. The cost to do it is going to be a lot more. So just do it for free. Come in the beginning. I'll let you know up front whether or not I think it is or not. And again, there's plenty of people out there looking for Wikipedia pages, so I'm not going to try to say, yeah, you qualify, let's do it. You know, I actually turn away probably 80 to 90% of the people who contact me because they simply, they simply don't qualify. But, one thing I wanted to address was Small Biz Show TV brings up a good point about Wikipedia not being credible. And absolutely true. Wikipedia is not credible. It's not a reliable source. In fact, Wikipedia doesn't even let you cite Wikipedia for other Wikipedia articles. Even the co-founder, Jimmy Wales, will tell you it's not credible. It's not reliable because it's all based on sources, and those sources may not necessarily support it. But here's why I still recommend Wikipedia for people. The people who say Wikipedia is not credible are the same ones that check Wikipedia for their information. Okay.
Right.
A great example will be in the educational field. Don't use Wikipedia to cite a source. Yeah, that's great. But go to Wikipedia, find the information, scroll to the bottom and look for a reference within that article.
Right.
Then go to that article and that's your source. So while it's not necessarily considered the most credible source out there as far as information, a lot of people see it as true. There's some people who say if it's on there, it's true. And it's also one of the first places people check. And that's the other reason why I say keep it short and simple. Let them know who you are, what you do. You have a link to your website. If people want more information, they can click on it, go to your website, and you can use all the weasel words you want there and tell them about your business and how great you are. But so while Wikipedia is not credible, people still seek it like the holy grail. It's almost like that cure for the disease that, people know it's probably not going to cure, but they want it anyway. So it's really great.
Yeah, great. Well said. Great information. And I appreciate you guys spending some time with us this afternoon. If you want to check out the full episode that Mike and I did, the full interview is at techshowpodcast.com. It is episode number 26. Yay me, 26 episodes for my podcast. And you can also check it out at theletstalktechshow.com/Wikipedia pages. We'll get you right there. This has been Winnie Anderson with my guest, Mike Wood, Wikipedia professional Wikipedia writer and editor. And I am the host of Let's Talk Tech, as I said, at Tech Show Podcast and the letstalktechshow.com, business development strategist. So it's been great spending time with you this afternoon. Get out there and enjoy the sun. And Mike, get connected to him and get all his great information. Get a free copy of his book at his website, legalmorning.com. And I'll be talking to you soon, Mike. Take care, everybody. Thanks a lot. And I'm going to X Mike out. Yay me. And now I'm going to end the show. So see you guys.